Thưa các bạn, thì đứng trước mặt chúng ta là một con người luôn luôn mặc áo khoác màu đỏ. He's always wear the red one. Bởi vì anh là Mighty Eagle, đại bàng dũng mãnh. Nếu như các bạn xem game River, các bạn sẽ biết, chơi game River sẽ biết là Mighty Eagle, đại bàng dũng mãnh của game huyền thoại Rivers. Thì 2 tháng trước thì anh Peter có ghé Đà Nẵng và mình có cơ hội được gặp ảnh, và khi mà anh thấy cái shop của chúng ta, anh cảm thấy đó là một điều rất là tuyệt vời ở một cái thành phố rất là tuyệt vời ở miền Trung. So I show you the video of shop. This was you said that it's a really great time, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
very good.
Yeah. Và I'm really happy that you received the invitation from the mayor to be back here.
Yeah, and it's great to be here in Da Nang again, so really enjoy it.
Yeah. Thưa các bạn, anh cũng chính là người sáng lập ra hội nghị khởi nghiệp toàn cầu lớn nhất thế giới hiện tại do sinh viên điều hành hoàn toàn, SLUSH của Phần Lan, hơn 10 năm tuổi và số lượng hiện tại mỗi năm là gần 20.000 người tham dự trên toàn thế giới ạ. Yeah, so you are the founder of SLUSH also, and that was an amazing story, right? Vì vậy nên một lần nữa chúng tôi rất là vui mừng, we are really happy to welcome you here on the stage. Rất là vui mừng chào đón Peter VESTERBACKA once again.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, so I'm afraid my Vietnamese is not, or it's like non-existent, so I didn't understand too much about what was said, but heard a few keywords there, so it was probably like, kind of like, okay. Anyway, it's my second time here in Da Nang, so last time we had a very good meeting with the mayor and his team, and talking about like what we could do together, and then of course Surf came up and watched the amazing video, and it's always great to be at events like this with lots of entrepreneurs, lots of young people, lots of energy, so super good to be here. Yeah, and I was kind of like thinking about like where should I start, but maybe I'll start with a bit about what I've been up to. So I actually started my kind of like career or working life, if you will, working for the original startup. So the company that Bill and Dave started in their garage in Palo Alto in California in 1939. And as we have like many young people here, so 1939 before my time, so I wasn't there. But yeah, Bill and Dave, Bill Hewlett, Dave Packard, they started not only like a fantastic company there in 1939 in their garage, you know, so that famous garage actually is still there, and it's not only the birthplace of HP, Hewlett Packard, but it's also where Silicon Valley got started. So Bill and Dave started a fantastic company, but they also started this little thing called Silicon Valley. And always like to bring this up because when we think about Silicon Valley today, we think about Google and Apple and Facebook and Twitter and you know, one of these like newcomers. But Silicon Valley has been around much longer, and it actually got started in that. Actually, it's a very small garage, so if you go to Palo Alto, you should go and check it out. But it's like a normal little garage there, but that's where it all started, and all the way back in 1939. And I think that it's a great example of the fact that when we are building these great things, that it takes a bit of time. They're very rarely, you know, overnight success stories that, you know, like two guys put something together or two girls put something together, and then, you know, like next day you have like a success story. But it takes a while. But yeah, anyway, so I started my career working at HP. So been to Silicon Valley a few times. It's one of those places where I don't need to have a navigator in my car, so I know my way around. Then while I was there, actually all the way back in 2003, I was running this HP Bazaar program. So it was a program to work with, for HP, you know, this big corporation, to work with startups. And then in 2003, while I was doing that, organized a game making competition. And this was when our friends at Nokia, another great company from Finland, they were still making phones. So this was a few years before iPhone, before Android. So organized a game making competition, and the idea was to make the best possible mobile multiplayer game. Okay, mobile, we worked with the Nokia guys. They had just come out with their first smartphones, the 7650, 3650. So you know these amazing number combinations that Nokia is famous for. But anyway, those were the first smartphones that they had just launched. So mobile, and then multiplayer, because working for HP, we were interested in providing the boring infrastructure to run these games, you know, the servers and all of that. And then 3 young guys from Aalto University in Helsinki, Finland, Niklas, Kim and Jarno, and they took part in this competition and they won. They created a game called King of the Cabbage World that you never heard of because it never came out under that name. But anyway, after winning the competition, they came to me and then they asked that, okay, now what? We're students here at Aalto and we won the competition, now what? What should we do? And then I always have the same advice, and I also have it for all of you. So I told Niklas and the guys that, you know, you guys not only love playing games, but you love making games. So why don't you start a company to do what you love? You know, to make games. Like, how difficult can it be? So then they started Rovio in 2003, you know, a long time ago. And then over the following 6 years, they made 51 games. And then 10 years ago, 11th of December 2009, 52nd game came out, Angry Birds. So how many here have played Angry Birds? Yeah, it's okay to admit. Typically most people have. But yeah, anyway, so Angry Birds came out 10 years ago, and yeah, it became a bit of a thing. So it's actually one of the most distributed piece of entertainment content ever. I think nowadays over 4 billion downloads. But anyway, it didn't take off immediately, and I think the first indication that we had that we were onto something was, first of all, of course, the developers spent a lot of time during development playing the game, and that's always like very good sign. But then Niklas went home for Christmas after the game came out, and then you know, to see his parents, and then always, you know, like you sure that, okay, you know, this is what we made, this is the latest game, and with the 51 previous games, then, you know, his mom takes a look at the phone and, okay, yeah, very nice, and here's the phone back. What happened with Angry Birds was that Niklas didn't get his phone back all Christmas because his mom was playing the game. And this was like 10 years ago, and back then it wasn't normal for moms like Niklas' mom to play games. Okay, nowadays, of course, everybody plays games, so it's like no big deal. But then we come like, okay, this is, you know, like most likely going somewhere. And then we actually got to #1 in Finland by telling friends and family to download the game, because this was again home of Nokia, not too many iPhones, so it was enough to get a few hundred downloads and we're #1. Became #1 and stayed there. Then became #1 in Sweden, our neighboring country. Then Apple took note that there's something going on. They featured us in the UK, in the US, went to #1 and stayed there. And yeah, then we got to 1 million, 2 million downloads, and then I started telling everybody in the company that we're gonna go for 100 million downloads. And then I was told that, oh, you know, Peter, you're crazy. Nobody has had 100 million downloads of like anything. Not even Tetris that had been around for 20 years back then. I mean, now 30. Nobody has got to 100 million, so it's impossible. But as we all know, there are very few things that are actually possible. So as long as you don't need to break like laws of nature or anything like that, then typically there is a way. So what happened then is that we set out to go for the 100 million downloads, and we had first 12 months of Angry Birds, 50 million. Then Christmas 2010 happened, and everybody, you know, back then got new iPhones, Androids for Christmas. So just over Christmas, we added 25 million. So not too bad. And of course, you know how it is, you get your new phone, you go to the App Store, what is number one? Oh, it's this Redbird, let's check it out, 25 million. And then in March 2011, 100 million, which was supposed to be impossible. So then, typical Finnish fashion, we ordered you know, a few bottles of champagne, had a glass, great, back to work, no big deal. And yeah, then after that we expanded into consumer products. We bought an animation studio, so we got into animation. And what actually happened is that we built Angry Birds into the fastest growing consumer brand ever. So in 2012, we are already in the top 10 of licensed brands in entertainment. You had 7 Disney brands, you had Hello Kitty, you know, so this over 40-year-old cat character by Sanrio out of Japan. You had Snoopy, been around since the 50s, and then Angry Birds had been around for like 2 years. So fastest to get into that top 10 like ever. And then what also happened that the company grew. When we launched Angry Birds, 12 people in the company. Then we grew it to 850, and then reduced it to about 400, and then like up again. So that's how it goes. But anyway, that meant that most of the people that joined were not there when it happened. So they didn't really experience like how we built the brand, how we made the 100 million happen and all that. So then when people asked Rovio people that, okay, that like, what do you do at Rovio? Oh, we make games and then they get 100 million downloads. You know, like how difficult is that? So it was kind of like normal that, okay, new game, 100 million, new game, 100 million. So, you know, like no big deal. And of course, it is a big deal. It's not so easy to get 100 million downloads of anything. But you can like learn how to do it. And when you know how to do something, then you think it's easy. I mean, it's no big deal. So when I'm asked that, okay, how did you guys make the success of Angry Birds happen? I always say that it's, of course, I mean, Finnish people are known for being the best marketeers on the planet. So I mean, that's, you know, one thing. But another thing is that everybody in the company, actually everybody in Finland, knows how to walk on water. That's how we made it happen. Then I'm typically told, like, what do you mean, like walking on water? Isn't that like very difficult? Actually, walking on water is very, very easy. So I welcome you all to come to Finland in the winter. Super easy to walk on water. It's frozen. Very easy. Okay, it's a bit slippery, but I mean, you'll figure it out. So the point I'm making here is that once you figure it out, it's not that difficult. 100 million downloads, walking on water. So like many things in life, first you think it's impossible. But then once you figure it out, actually it's pretty easy. 100 million downloads, walking on water, that's how you do it. So it's very, very important to keep this in mind that you know, if you look at the Rovio story here, you know, 3 young guys, Niklas, Kim and Jarno, Helsinki, Finland, make this game. Okay, they made 51 games before, but then, you know, 50-second game and then like boom, Angry Birds. So there is absolutely no reason why you couldn't do the same. You know, 3 young guys, 3 young girls here in Da Nang could do actually the exact same thing. And I mean, you also have a great role model here in Vietnam. So, you know, Dom made Flappy Bird. So he did pretty well as well. So again, just great example of the fact that these kind of success stories, these kind of innovations, these kind of games can come from anywhere. So there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't do the same. And I think this is also what I find very inspirational about like the Rovio story, that it really, if you look at it, started as a student project and then, you know, went places. So yeah, then in 2016 we got the first Angry Birds movie out, and it went to be #1 in 52 countries: US, China, Finland, Russia. I'm sure it was #1 here in Vietnam as well. And I thought that was like a good time for me to step down, and told the team that you're perfectly capable of running the show. So I'm gonna actually step down and start focusing on bigger things. And I was immediately told, okay, like what could be bigger than Angry Birds? At the time, like 4 billion downloads, and 93% of the Chinese population knows the brand, 91% of everybody in India, 9 out of 10 people on the planet know the brand. So then I said, okay, one thing that I think is slightly bigger is education. So what I've been focusing on now, actually already started doing that during the Rovio times, so I've been working on education for probably like about 10 years. And I don't have any background in education, so of course I went to school and like all that in Finland. But then during my time at HP, at Rovio and all of that, of course lots of friends in places like Singapore, in China, here in Vietnam, in India, lots of friends in the US, all over the world. But then when my, so I have 2 kids, they're now actually 16 and 14. But when my son started school, my good friend in Singapore, Emily, her daughter also started school. And then just, you know how it is, you meet your friends and then you talk about the kids and compare notes. And then I realized that the experience of school in Finland and Singapore are totally different. Both countries rank very high on these PISA results and all of that. But then I started looking at how we actually achieve those results. So I look at my kids, they go to school 9 or 10 in the morning, they get home early afternoon, they go out and play, they get home in the evening, they do 15 minutes of homework, done. And they don't do any school in the weekends, obviously. So it's fairly normal, but for a Finnish person this is normal. Then I started talking to Emily, her daughter, when she started school. 6 a.m. she has to get ready for school, and then already the first day of school, her teacher told her about 50 things that do this, don't do this, don't do this, do this. So you're constantly told what to do, what not to do. And then so the school day starts very early, so it also must finish very early. No, finishes very late in the afternoon, and after that you typically have extra tutoring and stuff because it's so competitive, so you have to have a bit of extra effort. And then I said, okay, but if you have all that, then you can't have any homework. Actually you can. So in high school you have between 2 and 4 hours every day. It's crazy. So then it's okay, but when do you have time to do other things besides school and homework? And turns out that you don't. And also turns out that there's actually so much homework in Singapore, actually same is true in China, that many of the kids can't cope with the homework. So the parents end up doing the homework on behalf of the kids. And then I'm but what's the point? And then I'm told that, oh Peter, you have to understand, they need to get to the next level, meaning to the next best school, best university, best whatever. So now, okay, but isn't this about learning and not playing some educational game or something like that? So realize that actually education is very, very different when we look at it around the world. And so I figured out that maybe we could do something about it. So then I started looking also at the size of the educational market. It's 6.3 trillion. It's not billion, but trillion. So it's pretty massive. It's actually the second biggest market after food. And yeah, from my perspective, coming from Finland, it's very inefficient. So if we can deliver fantastic results with half the effort, probably we can reduce the market size to say 3 trillion. And then being, modest Finnish people, me and my friends, so meaning me and a few startups that I either invested or started or just advising, we figured that we'll capture 10% of the global market. And if you do the math, it's still 300 billion a year. So it's a bit bigger than, for example, Angry Birds. So that's my plan for the next 10 years, is to go after this massive educational market. Okay, it's a good business, but actually the most important thing there is that I think that we really need to transform education, because if I look at like the downside, take places like Korea, because of this crazy academic pressure that you have in high school and this competitiveness, 25% of high school kids in Korea consider suicide because of academic pressure. 2 years ago, I don't have the stats for last year, in Singapore, the amount of suicides in the 12 to 17-year-old group doubled. India, where they actually have the highest teenage suicide rate anywhere in the world, when I was there last year in April, by April they had already 8,000 teenage suicides because of academic pressure. Fail a test, kill yourself. Obviously, not healthy. So we need to do something about that. And then I look back at what we're doing in Finland. So we have the best education system in the world. Short school days, not a lot of homework, fantastic results. We are also 2 years running the happiest nation on the planet. So it's not just me saying that, but actually based on UN studies. So I think that there is a big correlation between education and happiness. So not only is education a big opportunity, from a startup and entrepreneur perspective, but it's also the right thing to do. We have to do something about this, and there is a better way. So my plan is to transform education globally next 10 years, together with a few friends. So that's what I'm working on. And then for me, education is not just school and all that, but also want to talk a little bit about SLUSH, because SLUSH is actually it's the biggest startup event on the planet. So we started that in Helsinki back in 2008, but actually the story started already in 2007. So I gave a talk to audience actually not much smaller than this, so 600 people, 600 students at Aalto University in Helsinki, Finland, about entrepreneurship. And during my presentation I asked the students that, okay, how many of you guys are now going to start a company or join a startup once you graduate, or even before, which is fine as well. 2007, Helsinki, Finland, our best students, out of 600, only 3 raised their hand. Complete disaster. I mean, of course, not everybody has to work at a startup or anything like that, but it's important to keep in mind that if you look at history, and let's go a bit further back, it's not like the dinosaurs inherited the earth. It was the small furry animals. And of course, not all corporations, not all big organizations are dinosaurs, but there is a correlation there. Typically, innovation, new thinking comes from smaller organizations, from startups, that they grow up and become these bigger corporations. So I was actually giving a talk at this forest day yesterday in Finland. So I was actually then saying that it's also with the forest that you have to start with small plants and they grow up to become big trees. And we need to have everything in the ecosystem. And if everybody wants to work, back then in Finland, go to work for Nokia or one of the big corporations or the government, that's fine. But we also need to have people that then are a bit less risk averse and are willing to go and do something. That's what entrepreneurship is all about. And we actually need entrepreneurial thinking and mindset. Not only in the startups, we need it in our big corporations, we need it in government, we need to get stuff done everywhere. So clearly, we needed to do something. If only 3 out of 600 of our best students wanted to become entrepreneurs. So that's why we started SLUSH in 2008. We didn't start that to become the biggest and best startup event that it has now become, but we actually did it in order to change the mindset, change the attitude. And when you think about that, that's actually about learning. So it's like an educational effort if you look at it. Okay, SLUSH, we decided to do things differently. So I have been to hundreds of what I would call wannabe Silicon Valley events. You go there and then they will tell you that, oh, here in Beijing, we're going to become the Silicon Valley of China. and then I go to Hangzhou, home of Alibaba, and then Jack Ma sings a song. After Jack, the mayor of Hangzhou gets on stage, and you already know what he's going to say. Hangzhou will become the Silicon Valley of China. Go to Tokyo, they want to be Silicon Valley of Asia. Go to Tampere in Finland, and they want to be the Silicon Valley of like smart cities or something like that. And everybody wants to be Silicon Valley of this, Silicon Valley of that. So again, I started my talk about Silicon Valley and the fact that I actually started my career at HP, which I started that whole thing. Silicon Valley, fantastic place, but it's already there. You can't lead by following, you can't lead and you can't create new things by copying. So with SLUSH, we decided to organize SLUSH in November in Helsinki. And when you come to Helsinki this November, 21st and 22nd, by the way, that's when you should be in Helsinki for SLUSH. I promise you that it's going to be cold, it's going to be dark, and there's going to be slush on the ground. It's not the Silicon Valley. It's much, much better. And it's much, much better because it's different. Nobody will mistake Helsinki in November for Silicon Valley, I guarantee you. But that doesn't make it any worse or any better, but it's different. And when you do things differently, most of the time, that also means better. So with SLUSH, we decided to organize it in November to make the point. But then you could ask, okay, so how is it different in other ways? SLUSH, since the beginning, has been, non-profit. So we set it out to change the mindset, change the attitude. It's all organized by volunteers. Last year we had over 20,000 people from 160 countries show up there. So half the Silicon Valley flies to Helsinki. We have half of China, and many people also from here from Vietnam, from all over Asia, from all over Europe, come to Helsinki. But the really cool thing is that the whole thing is organized by 2,600 volunteers from more than 60 countries. Keyword being volunteers. Young people who are there not because somebody told them to be there, but because they want to be there, they love to be there. Making stuff happen. This is very important. And you can actually sense that when you come to the SLUSH event. And what happened actually 5 years after we started SLUSH, I went back to Aalto University, gave the same talk about entrepreneurship, asked the students same question. How many of you guys are gonna, start a company or join a startup once you graduate or even before? More than half raised their hands. So we did like culture revolution in just 5 years with SLUSH. Totally changed the attitude, the mindset about entrepreneurship. And at the first SLUSH, I shared, this like perspective and like this what we wanted to do, and I also said that we're going to make SLUSH the biggest and best startup event on the planet. And I was told, Peter, you're crazy. What about Silicon Valley? I said, what about Silicon Valley? No, half of Silicon Valley comes to Helsinki. So again, it wasn't impossible to make that happen. And that was also the topic of my talk here, that impossible is nothing. There are very, very few things that are impossible. And typically, we are very good ourselves at creating, these kind of limitations and for ourselves. So I think it's very, very important not to do that. I mean, you can easily, or okay, maybe not easily, but after a few games, you could create the next Angry Birds, or you could start the next Facebook, Google, or you name it. There's no reason why not. Those were some of the thoughts that I wanted to share with you all today, and I'm going to be around here, so I'm like easy to find in my red hoodie. So if you have anything you want to talk about, feel free. And guess we also might have time for some questions. So yeah. So maybe I'll stop talking right here, and we'll make it more fun and more interactive. So anybody have any questions? And thank you for listening.
Dạ có ai có câu hỏi nào dành cho Peter không ạ?
Hi man, introduce myself. I'm Martin. The game designs a Jaco is your buddy in Romeo. And can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I really like the style of Jaco is the game designer of Angry Bird, and I do game designer before, but then I moved to some things called board game. And now I'm just moving in other step, like connecting the content creator with my games. Like, you know board game, right? The games like Exploding Kitten or kind of that. And I want to like, and the next step of me is like going with content creator, not only in Vietnam but all over the world. So how do you think about if your games or the things you are doing like education, you can connect with content creator, like comic or cartoon, the one who can go viral and makes that as a other marketing channel for you. How do you think about that? And do you have any idea to like sharpen that business model?
Okay, I'll try to answer that. So yes, if I understood correctly, it was a bit about like combining education and games. That's one thing that I'm working on as part of this plan to transform education globally. So what I think that we need to do is that we need to bring together the best game designers and the best pedagogues, and we need to really look at how the best games are made. So if you look at the games market today, every day we have 700 new games hitting the App Store. So it's like super competitive. And I think that, and there's already like hundreds of thousands of games already out there. So if you are designing games today, you really need to be good at, of course, designing the games and the gameplay and all of that, but you also need to be very, very good at getting the attention. Why will people download your game or all the other 700 games that day, or the hundreds of thousands of games that are already there? And then another thing that has happened in games, that free-to-play, freemium model has become the dominant design, meaning that first of all you need to get people to download the game. Then once you download the game, you have pretty much like one shot for convincing people to come back. So if you don't like the game, it didn't cost you anything, it's gone, and you're never coming back. So you need to come out, get the people, you need to keep them engaged. And then after that, if you're lucky, then you can start thinking about how do you monetize it. And I think that if you then look at education, same common challenge, we need to get the attention of the people. There are so many things that you can do with your time today. Play a game, watch the latest movie on Netflix, whatever. So there's lots of entertainment, lots of things to do. So we're all constantly battling for people's time. So the educational side, games and entertainment, same problem, same challenge. So I think we can learn a lot from each other. And I think that bringing together the best game designers, best pedagogues, we can create fantastic educational experiences. And that's actually what we need to do. School and education hasn't really changed over the last hundreds of years. There's actually this joke about a guy that gets by mistake transported 100 years into the future, and then he's all lost and he doesn't recognize anything. So what advice should we give to him? And we should actually tell him that, go to a school, it will be the same. So yeah, anyway, so I think that there's a lot that we can do on that side, bringing the game designers, the entertainment industry experience into education. So maybe if I understood part of your question right. So that's one thing that I'm working on for sure. And I think that we could look at this this whole thing as this kind of triple E model. So education at the foundation, then we need entrepreneurship, and we need entertainment. So this kind of like triple E model. So education, of course, foundation for everything. We need to have an entrepreneurial approach. People need to learn how to take care of themselves and actually get stuff done. And then we can learn from the entertainment and games industry how you actually engage people, and it's all about psychology. So it's a bit of a science as well. And then there's something about marketing. So I think that short answer there. But of course, we can learn a lot from how games are being marketed. You know, when you look at education or actually any industry. And then yeah, so I think that the most important thing in marketing, if you ask me, is differentiation. So how do you stand out from the 700 other games, the thousands of other products out there? So that's what it becomes about when you have a market where there is abundance of supply. But yeah, that's a long answer, and I'm not sure if I got the question right, but
yeah,
hopefully addressed part of it.
Thank you for your answer. And just one more thing, can I just ask, like, if reverse to like 10 years ago, when you just first start Angry Bird, and it's not really famous, right, like that time, and then you know PewDiePie, right, the guy with 100 million views on YouTube, will you like collaborate with him to make Angry Bird something like go faster and trigger like that to now? Will you like, in that time, you pick that way to do?
So 10 years ago was then, and this is now. So you always have to live in like in now, and of course the world changes, and then you need to figure out like how to get to the 100 million, and that's I think that that's the most difficult thing, is to get the first 100 million downloads. It's not easy, and I can't say that I can guarantee you that I will get to like 100 million downloads or something like that, but at least I learned like a few things on like how to get there. Again, I think that repeat that you need to think about like how to stand out, but then it really depends on what kind of game, what kind of thing you're doing. You need to figure out the marketing kind of like around that, and it's always case by case, and it's different. So most important thing is to kind of go out there, do things, learn, make mistakes, do more, make more mistakes, and eventually you'll figure it out. So I mean, like from the Rovio story, at least you can learn that, you know, 51 games, 50-second game, Angry Birds. So don't expect your first game to be a hit. Very, very rarely does it go like that.
Okay, thank you so much. We move to the next question.
Hey Peter, I'm Stella from Senya Tech. I'm here with my whole team.
Great.
I'm very interested in everything that you've had to say today, and I have a question for you that I would like you to share. What are the key points that you think the Finnish educational system has done compared to the other countries you explained about?
I think maybe the most important thing, if you ask me, is that our educational system doesn't kill creativity, doesn't kill initiative. So I think that is maybe the most important thing. Okay, then how we do that is that there's very, let's say, just enough testing. So it's not like testing, but it's actually like learning for life, not learning for tests. So that is something that's very important. Then it's focused on life skills. So, you know, like how to work with others, you know, and these kind of like things. So it's not just that, okay, rote learning that, you know, like you learn a bunch of things like by heart, but it's actually about learning for life, learning life skills. I think that's something that is very, very important. And then I mentioned, I mean, this kind of like short school days, not a lot of homework. I think this is something that is very, very important, because you need to have time for, you know, like learning for school, but also then to reflect and like go out, play with your friends, and kind of like learn for life. So I think this is something that's very important. That it's just like if you are working 24/7 and you don't take any breaks, you're actually not very efficient. So it's not kind of like a good way to get results. And I think that we shouldn't measure time, not in work, not in school, but we should measure results. And I mean, that's kind of like an obvious thing to say, but it's not obvious when you look at some of the people designing these educational systems. I mean, also one thing on like topic of homework, that there are studies that prove that homework before the age of 16 has no positive impact on learning. So the only reason you have lots of homework is to keep the kids busy. And I think that, of course you can have that as a design objective, that we want to keep the kids off the streets. Like, the former Secretary of Education in the US, Arne Duncan, told me that why they want to have longer school days is that if they let the kids out in the streets in Chicago, they will kill people. But I mean, that's maybe not, a good design criteria for our educational system to keep kids off the streets, and off killing people. So, but yeah, I think that there are many different points that they make for a good educational system. So these are just some visible, high level things, but I think that it's not about one thing, it's about a combination of many things. So always when you look at education, you take a very holistic view. We need to look at this as a system, so we need systemic change. It's not, what is happening now, for example, in China, there was actually this comment, or actually more than that, it was really an order from the Chinese Communist Party that schools that issue too much homework, meaning that the kids can't cope with it and parents end up doing it, schools and teachers that do that will be severely dealt with. And I think that then that is one way of doing, but it's only one piece. So that has already led to other problems, and then the kids go to other teachers, other schools to get more homework because they still need to cope with the GAGA, the final test in China. So it's not good enough to fix this one thing, but you need to fix the whole system. So I think that the best way to understand, for example, educational system in Finland is to come visit, check it out, and then you can see how it works. But it's quite different. And I think one thing that is important, then if you look at the results. So Finland, 5 million people, we created things like Linux, MySQL, IRC, Angry Birds, Nokia, Supercell, so on and so on. And I think that there is a strong correlation between good education and good educational system, and then success in business and in innovation. So I think that's very important always to look at that side as well.
Thank you. We have 3 minutes left, so this is the last question for you.
Hi Peter, pleased to meet you. And I worked for Nokia before in Vietnam, so really appreciate with you. I had a question. In Vietnam, now small enterprise and medium achieve around 98%. So they have now big barrier from the networking, from the finance, from the human resource. So from your side experience, and you can work around the world, so you can sell and you can advise recommendation experience for apply in Vietnam or Da Nang City to help the small and medium enterprise company growing up in Vietnam or Da Nang. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So again, not sure if I understood the question perfectly, but I'll answer something. So yeah, maybe one thing that if I look at Vietnam, so this is now my 3rd time that I'm here actually this year, and I think very impressed with everything, you know, and how things are evolving here. So I think super impressive, and I think that it's very exciting times here in Vietnam right now. And one thing that I'm looking for is much more collaboration between, you know, Vietnam and Europe. And of course, you know, being from Finland, Vietnam and Finland in particular. But I think that there's a lot that we can do, and of course there's, you know, like trade wars and stuff going on. So that's actually, you know, challenges for some people, but it provides with plenty of opportunity for you know, others. And I think that that's something that we should really leverage. And we already have like a lot of collaboration between the startup ecosystems here in Vietnam and Finland. And actually, if you have a chance, I really encourage you to come and check out SLUSH. I mean, we have, if you're a student, we have very good, you know, like affordable tickets for SLUSH in Helsinki. So then you will meet with lots of like-minded people. And if you're a startup, you'll meet with lots of like-minded people. You'll meet with other startups, investors, and all that. So I think that we should look at increasing the cooperation between our startup ecosystems here in Vietnam, startup ecosystem in Europe, and I'm working on several initiatives to create more of this kind of like exchange and more of this kind of connection. So working on this internship program. We've already been doing that actually together with Singapore, so we have lots of people from Singapore coming to Finland working in our startups. We now want to expand that so that we have, you know, hundreds of Vietnamese young people experiencing working, interning at startups in Finland. And you know, I guarantee you that we'll learn a lot. Maybe you start your own startup here or you know, somewhere in Europe. So I think that there's a lot of these kind of learning experiences that we should be focusing on. And I'm actually super happy that we have more and more Vietnamese students in Finland. So we could easily accommodate for tens of thousands more, because we have a huge shortage of talent currently. So you know, we're very happy to see more Vietnamese talent, more Vietnamese young people working in Finland, so we can provide fantastic education but also fantastic jobs. And I'm also very happy that on the same flight that I came with, actually there were a few Finnish entrepreneurs who are actually already on the ground here in Vietnam. So I think that we have very good examples of this collaboration. I think that we could do much more in that area. So yeah, not sure if I answered your question, but maybe it was you know, useful. So guess we need to wrap up now. But as I said, I'm going to be around for like the rest of the day. So feel free to come talk, and we can you know, see what we can come up with. Thank you.
Xin cảm ơn ông Peter, và chúng ta cho một tràng pháo tay nữa để cảm ơn những phần chia sẻ của Mr. Peter được không ạ? Vâng, và những chia sẻ của ông Peter đã kết thúc các phiên thảo luận trong buổi chiều ngày hôm nay, và chúng ta sẽ bước vào chương trình được mong đợi nhất. Cuộc thi Pitching Shop 2019 sẽ được bắt đầu trong vòng ít phút nữa, và xin có một số thông báo đến mọi người. Ông Peter của chúng ta ngày mai sẽ có một phiên chia sẻ tại trung tâm hành chính, thì mời quý vị và các bạn có những quan tâm thì có thể đến tham gia. Và ngay sau đây xin mời các quý vị đại biểu, các thành viên ban giám khảo cũng như là các đội thi, chúng ta nhanh chóng tập trung về khu vực ở phía trên sân khấu để chuẩn bị, và cuộc thi pitching của chúng ta sẽ bắt đầu trong vòng 5 phút nữa. Xin cảm ơn mọi người.